Developers, the wizards that shape your company like nobody else. Their code helps build your products, develop systems, and keeps your entire technology infrastructure from falling apart. But hiring the right developers is a tricky task. You receive a lot of applications, but you only want the best. So how do you identify the best developers without spending a lot of valuable time on the wrong candidates? Introducing HackerEarth's technical recruitment software, a platform that helps you hire the best developers by using online tests to assess your applicants. Here's how it works. With HackerEarth, you can invite candidates to remotely appear for customized coding tests for any technical role. And once they take your tests, you can access detailed performance reports to decide who makes it through to the next rounds. Auto-generate highly customized tests for any technical role, even if you're not a developer yourself. Access our library of more than 15,000 inbuilt questions, or add and use your own. With over 35 programming languages supported, you can receive submissions in the language of your choice. The system magically evaluates the code submissions based on multiple parameters. And you get detailed reports on each candidate's performance. Copying or using any unfair means on a test is impossible, thanks to our proctoring measures and plagiarism detection techniques. HackerEarth helps you optimize your tech hiring process by scaling your hiring efforts, improving your accuracy, and reducing your time to hire. Tech recruiters use HackerEarth for a variety of requirements, identifying the right candidates during lateral hiring, scaling their university recruitment efforts, and aiding workplace diversity through blind hiring. More than 500 companies globally use HackerEarth to assess developers. Now, it's your turn to transform your hiring process. Register for a free trial today and try HackerEarth now.
So a very warm welcome to everyone present today. Thank a lot for making it to the webinar. I know it's a little difficult to come out of your busy schedules every day and attend such a webinar, but I hope this session will be a very informative session for you. So today we have Mr. George Kemish. He's from UK, and he has been in the HR field for a lot of time now. And I hope this webinar gives a great insight of the industry to everyone and how they can improve themselves as well as improve the companies and improve the value chain as a whole. So now I pass on the mic to Mr. George, and he'll be taking this forward.
Good morning to you, and welcome to this webinar. One that I've been hoping to do for some time now, and it's great to be here with you. The actual, when we talk about adding value, I mean, value is something that we really need to understand in a business context. When we look at value, it's easy for us to base value on what we do, and in our private life, we actually tend to do that. We tend to base it on what we get out of doing something rather than what other people get. But in a business context, value needs to be evaluated in terms of what we create and whether or not we meet or exceed the expectations of the external customer. We've seen organizations where the strategy is centric on the investors or the bottom line. Investors, society, and even government agencies are important, as they can all have effect on business, and vice versa. Of course, business can have an effect on them. But it is the customer that will have the biggest effect on both, on return on investment and on profit and loss. So it's the customer that will have the biggest effect on both the return on investment and the profit and loss. And it's for this reason that the value chain needs to start with the customer and work back through every department within the organization. This starts at a strategic level. And yet, how often do we see the business plan being handed to the HR professional to interpret after the corporate business planning process has taken place? In business planning, there is a need to look at trends in both the internal and external environments, and these will include social, technological, economic, political, environmental, and demographic trends. And planners need to understand the context in which each of these trends may have an effect on an organization. By excluding the HR professional from the business planning process, you deprive him or her of gaining a first-hand insight into the interdepartmental discussions that have forged the outcome of the planning process. But by including the HR professional in the corporate planning process and writing the HR strategy directly into the business plan against each individual goal, you can ensure that heads of department have an input in the formulation of the HR strategy, thereby reducing the risk of misinterpretation of their needs. In business planning, there is a need to look at trends in both the internal and external environments, and of course these will include social, technological, economic, political, environmental, and demographic trends. But planners also need to understand the context in which each of these trends have an effect on the organization. By excluding the HR professional from the business planning process, you actually deprive him or her of gaining a first-hand insight into the interdepartmental interactions and discussions that have actually forged the outcome of the planning process. But by including the HR professional in the corporate planning process and writing the HR strategy directly into the business plan against each individual goal, you can ensure that heads of department have an input in the formulation of the HR strategy, thereby reducing the risk of misinterpretation of their needs. You can also ensure that HR strategy facilitates processes that support the value chain, taking into account external and internal trends and changes in the business environment. But more than that, the HR strategy can be reviewed at the same time as overall organizational goals, thereby allowing change to be undertaken more expediently. John Harvey Jones, when he was the chief executive officer of a major chemical company here in the UK, once said that if industry is not changing, then it is dying. Now that means that there is constant change in the workplace, and so HR professionals need to be proactive rather than reactive in an ever-changing environment. But if this is to add real value, then the HR professional will need a wider understanding of business administration and management, whilst also having an inquisitive mind in order to be able to interpret and the interdepartmental interactions that support the value chain. By inquisitive, I mean working in close collaboration with other departments to gain an understanding of their processes and of the problems that they may be experiencing. Another area that needs to be addressed is organizational design and workflow. We're now on the eve of the fourth industrial revolution. And whilst there has been a great deal written about this, my own belief is that we will see information technology being linked across the organization in order to provide a more holistic system whereby data can be drawn from any department in order for it to be analysed. It is therefore important that we do not lose sight of the need for organisational design to link together interdepartmental lines of communication in order to facilitate collaboration between internal stakeholders. It also means that HR professionals will be required to analyse data from across the organisation in order to identify trends that may require changes to be made to HR strategy. This is another reason for the HR professional to have a wider knowledge of the way in which business is conducted. We know that change these days is very, very fast, and I can see that with the introduction of digitization, it's going to get even quicker, and there is going to be a lot of data that will need analysis. In ensuring that value is provided to external stakeholders, we also need to look to the internal environment and the people that will deliver value to the customer. And of course, that's the employees. This really starts with culture. Culture is one of the most elusive entities and can be hard to evaluate. It can shape attitudes and behaviors while setting an agenda for what should be encouraged, discouraged, accepted, or rejected. And so it needs to be aligned to values, drivers, and needs. The culture should mirror the brand. An example of this is Apple. Their brand is synonymous with innovative products such as the iPhone. It is not surprising, therefore, that if you look at their culture as one whereby innovation is seen as a major factor. Their people are provided with the time, resources, support, and development to allow them to be both innovative and creative, and whereby failure is acceptable as long as lessons are learnt from it. Most successful businesses do not manage conflict. Instead, they nurture collaboration. This is yet another lesson that can be learned from Apple. However, two more lessons came out of Apple that weren't quite so good while Steve Jobs was the CEO there. The first being that he was not good at managing people. The second being that he did not have a lot of trust in his HR department. He saw them as holding innovation back. They rarely saw the corporate plan and spent a great deal of time reacting to situations instead of being proactive in supporting the organization. And what we're trying to do is to get away from having to react to situations and be more proactive. I actually see this quite a bit during my visits to other organizations as well. People have been promoted based on their technical ability with little, if any, coaching or mentoring in people management. Good leadership provides sustainability and supports the culture within the organization. Coaching and mentoring should commence at the earliest possible opportunity and should be incorporated in succession planning where appropriate. I was lucky enough to work for an organization where everyone being promoted had to attend a management course. This ranged from junior management through to an advanced management and leadership course. Courses run for the organization, by the organization, that ensured that managers were capable of fostering the organizational behavior required to support the cultural requirements. And I think that really is an important factor when we actually look at value. When considering HR strategy, we're looking at the workforce as a resource. We would normally only look at individuals if there is a specific need. That need might include the need to utilize specific skills that a person might possess in order to undertake a specific task. However, when looking at operational and transactional HR, we're looking at specific people and at how we can engage them in providing a valued service to the customer. This again comes down to good leadership skills that are consistent with organizational culture, supported by the HR professional. It is worth noting at this stage that the HR professional does not manage people, apart from those in the HR department. It is the line manager that manages people on a day-to-day basis. It is they that should know their people and determine how best to engage them. The role of the HR professional is to facilitate and support the management of people. There are a number of actions that can help to engage employees in adding value through their work. Some are quite obvious, such as pay and benefits, training and development, career management, recognition for the contribution that they make in the workplace, trust in the leadership and having supportive managers, having sufficient resources to be able to undertake the task allocated to them, and that of course includes staffing levels, clear and concise communication between management and employees, most important. remembering that communication works both ways. Management also have to be prepared to listen to their people's concerns and suggestions. I've already mentioned the brand that Apple have built by providing a culture whereby people are encouraged to be innovative and to collaborate. But there are two other facets that can have an effect on engagement. The first is a belief in the quality of the product or service being provided by the employer. Who wouldn't, if you were a technical guy at Apple, I think you'd be quite proud of what you're actually producing and how people perceive that. And I think that's important. The second factor is strategy alignment. Whether the employees understand and buy into an organization's plans for the future. It is this last point on which I really want to concentrate for the next few minutes, because people need to understand how the organization has reached its present position and the direction that the senior management envisage that the organization will take in the future. They need to have an appreciation of the goals that have been set and of the benefits that will be derived through change. They also need to know how they will be expected to play their part in ensuring future success. And to do this, they really need to understand the value chain, the interdepartmental interactions that support the value chain, and the importance and value of the work that they themselves will undertake. This is the link between employee engagement and the value chain itself. So how is this information delivered to the employee? Well, for the new employee, this information can and should be delivered as part of the induction training or onboarding. However, I'm seeing quite a gulf between what I consider to be an excellent approach to onboarding and organizations whose onboarding programs really leave a great deal to be desired. One such example of poor onboarding resulted in the failure of the organization to deliver the quality of service expected by its customers, and this led to a net loss of market share amounting to hundreds of thousands of pounds sterling. This was purely down to the fact that one team of employees failed to understand the value chain and of how their actions would result in the failure to meet customer expectations. For existing employees, senior management should take the opportunity to brief their people after completion of the corporate planning process and provide an opportunity for people to ask questions in order to ensure clarity of vision by their employees. And I'll say one thing there. My attitude towards people asking questions, I do not believe that there is a silly question. I believe that if somebody has a question, it's because they've either misunderstood something I've said or they have not taken on board everything that I've put forward. So there is never a silly question. If somebody's got something on their mind, then that detracts from their work. It causes disruption. So I'd rather answer the question however silly it might sound. Now, this may sound obvious, but experience has shown that poor two-way communication between senior management and their employees is one of the most prevalent failings in the business environment when it comes to both change management programs and in adding value to the end customer. In conclusion, there is some debate, both on senior management level and by HR professionals as well, with regard to who the real customers are when it comes to the provision of services by the HR professional. And some people may find this quite astounding, but my belief is that despite some of them that will tell you the customer is the employee, well, that's only partly right, but it's also partly wrong. The service provided by the HR professional impacts on external stakeholders, business leaders, line managers, and employees, but the biggest impact of all is on the value chain itself. HR professionals are in a unique position in that they have access to every department on a daily basis and can actually see for themselves if both culture and strategy are having the desired effect. When digitization eventually becomes linked across all departments in the organization, the HR professional will be in a better position to evaluate data, but she or he will also find that sifting through the data will take up a great deal of time. For that reason, I personally envisage the introduction of business analysts into HR departments to assist with what I believe will be a time-consuming exercise. Value really comes down to that. It's really the value chain and ensuring that you act upon the data that's available to you. And for HR professionals, then they really are in that position of having oversight across the organization. They can see when things start to go wrong and they can help to find solutions. Because it's people that actually make decisions, not machinery, or technology. So extremely important that the HR professional is capable of understanding the way in which the company or the organization that they are there to support actually operates. Thank you very much indeed for your time. I've really enjoyed providing that webinar.
So now the forum is open for any questions. If you guys have any question, you can address that in the question section, and George will be happy to address them. In the meantime, we have a small poll which you can have.
I have no questions that I can see there.
So I'll just read them out. Maybe there's some problem with you seeing them. So the first question comes from Yusin. He says, "Hi, what is the data that business analysts need to share with HR professionals?"
Well, basically, what we're looking for is areas that are not performing that well. So it's really a bit of a reactionary exercise to actually go and look in areas where performance is failing. And that's really what we're looking for.
So one more question. It's from Mr. Mittal. He asks, what do you mean by HR has day-to-day access to different functions?
I mean, it's the people within the organization that are going to produce value, but it's also the people in the organization that will make decisions. And a lot of decisions are not, they're not only made by management, they're actually made by individuals actually whilst they're doing their job. And HR has an opportunity to actually go into different departments to see how they work, see if they're struggling, and see if there's some way in which HR can actually assist in with their problems. That's really what I'm getting at there.
So there's one more question from Saha. So how to influence top management to understand that development is required at all levels?
Are we talking personal development or organizational development? Because I think the two things are really connected. If you're developing your people, then that is going to have a knock-on effect through the organization. It helps to develop the organization as well. It helps to add value, and it hopefully, if you're a business, it's going to increase your market share.
Okay, thank you. So one more question. What modern HR is all about, and how can it affect the HR strategy?
Well, modern HR is really about the value chain. It's looking at if you take something that David Ulrich has said. Obviously, he's a professor at Michigan University, and he won't like me for saying this, and he probably won't appreciate it, but he is one of the granddaddies of HR. And basically what he's saying is that you work from the outside in. So you're actually working from your external stakeholders back through the organization. So you start with strategy and you work your way back through till you get to employee engagement. So really, for modern HR, it's about ensuring that value is added through the human resources. Now, when we actually come to look at the fourth industrial revolution, which is going to be digitization, but it's not just going to be digitization, because we've already started that. We've already started with artificial intelligence. But what it will do is to connect all the different computer systems that we use. You no longer have one for finance, you will no longer have one for HR. It will connect, there will be one system that will basically hold all the information that senior management and managers and even employees need to be able to do their job and to provide the sort of data and information that's required for that process. So what's going to come out in the future, I don't know. I mean, we've had HR version 1, which if you go back to the 1970s was basically restricted to HR administration. We've had HR version 2, which late 1980s started to bring in things like the HR business partner. We're not sure yet what HR3 is going to be. That will really depend on digitization, the sort of data that we have access to and how we use that data, and it may well change the way in which we work. That's something that we need to look to the future.
Yes, so I guess you can see my screen now. There are a few questions more.
I can. How can HR contribute to business growth? Well, HR can contribute to business growth through development of people. I mean, that is what is going to develop business growth. Are you still there?
Hear you?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you for a bit. But that's really what's going to contribute to business growth. It's going to be development of your people, and it's going to, and that obviously will assist in the development of the organization.
So you can address the top two questions as well. I guess this is Maha, had a query related to HR being part of the business plan. Hello, George, are you there?
Yeah, I was just reading the question, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very good question, actually. But, you know, it comes down to actually having an HR professional in on when they do the corporate business planning. They need, you know, we've seen it before whereby, and part of the reason why Steve Jobs at Apple didn't trust his HR department was because he felt that when they did come up with something, they came up with a plan, there was misinterpretation of what was actually required. And that's always going to happen if your HR professional doesn't hear the interactions that are actually taking place between the other heads of department, the interactions that formulate the business plan. By listening to those and getting input from the other heads of department, there is less chance of misinterpretation. And I think that really is one of the levers for saying, yes, you know, you need HR in there as part of the business planning process.
So we don't have any more questions. If someone has any questions, please address them right now. So I can see that there's no more questions coming up. So I guess that is it for today. So thank you so much, Mr. George, for your time and sharing all the insights that you have and all the experience that you've gathered all over the years. It's been a very informative session, and I believe all the attendees had a great session as well. So thank you very much to you as well as all the work that you did.
Sorry, I apologize for any technical hitches my end. I'm not quite sure what happened there.
Yeah. So no issue at all. So also we would like to thank the attendees for sparing time from their busy schedules to be able to make it to this webinar. And
that is very, very Much appreciated.
So that's it for the day, I guess. So thank you so much once again to all. It's been a great session. I hope you have a great day ahead. Bye bye.
And can I thank you for inviting me to speak? It's been a real pleasure.
It's been a
It's
pleasure
been
for
a
us.
real pleasure.
You're very well welcome, George, and we hope to collaborate soon, maybe sometime later for another session that can, shed
Yeah,
more light to some important topics of HRs these
mhm.
days.
I would love that. Would
Yep.
really like that.
So thank you, one and all, and have a great day ahead. Bye bye.
Thank you very much indeed.